Dr. Ernst, host of the Ask Dr. Ernst show, and this last Saturday was epic. We had over 1,000 people registered and online for my masterclass with weight loss. I went through the top 3 reasons people struggle today to lose weight, everything from hormone imbalance to toxicities, even neurological involvement. And if you missed the live masterclass, I have an incredible gift for you, a free replay. You can watch it now. You can watch it tomorrow. You can even watch it later this week. It's 100% free, and it's going to show you everything you need to do to start losing weight fast. If you want the replay, I only need one thing. The word replay texted to 704-906-2094. Don't forget to put your name and email because it'll help, but just send the word replay to 704-906-2094. There's a free ebook with the diet and guidelines and everything you need. Again, text the word replay to 704-906-2094. Hello and welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Dr. Ernst, and I'm thrilled to have this exceptional experience with you guys today. A critical topic in health, heart health, coronary artery calcium scores. Hey, today is a special broadcast. Sadly, there are games that are kicking us off the airways, but we still come at you through our live stream cameras. And I want to make sure that today we discuss a crucial topic. 1, what is a coronary artery calcium score? 2, how do you lower that score if it's elevated? 3, what the heck does this have to do with anything? Like, why are we talking about this? Well, we're transitioning into a heart series again because it is the #1 leading cause of death in the U.S. So over the next hour, we're going to cover why calcium builds up in your arteries in the first place, but most importantly, how do you get rid of it? And as you guys know, we're going to break this show into 2 segments. The first half, we're going to spend talking about the top three reasons calcium ends up in your heart vessels. And then after we come back, we're going to discuss the top 5 natural techniques that you can use to lower your calcium scores. So as we begin a special series, guys, we're only streaming online, and I got to be careful putting this on YouTube because they're probably going to pull the content. Like, I'm still streaming it live on YouTube, but our content is getting yanked due to the fact that we're teaching you how to heal yourselves, and the powers to be don't want you to do that. Facebook is getting better, but they're still also being a little bit of like fact checking. But man, we love X. Used to be Twitter. We love X. X doesn't pull anything. So hey, shout out to our Twitter fans. Thanks for tuning in. And of course, if you're listening on the podcast through Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, we love that you're here. But we're not on the airways today, but that doesn't hold us back from giving you great information. So what is a coronary artery calcium score? First, we just have to talk about what is it? Okay, so it's known as a CAC. I've talked about this briefly in some other episodes, but we've had such a large number of our patients, and for good reason, getting coronary artery scores, but kind of freaking out when the results come back. So let's talk about what is it and how do we lower it naturally. Okay, the test itself is a measurement physically of the amount of calcium found in the arteries of your heart, and the blood vessels supply the oxygen-rich blood to your heart. So it is important to know if you have calcium built up in those arteries. Think of it like a garden hose, all right? So if the hose is clear, the water flows easily through. But if there's like a debris on the inside, maybe think of like hardened dirt or even like calcium that can build up inside of pipes and things like that. It restricts the flow. So the same thing can happen to the arteries of your heart when calcium builds up. The condition, if it's described medically, is called atherosclerosis, or a hardening of an artery. And this will eventually lead to a heart issue or a heart attack if it invites cholesterol, and we end up with the dreaded, quote, plaque. So technically, yes, the higher your coronary artery calcium score, the more calcium that is present, and the greater risk you are of having something like that, if you're watching live stream, of course, happen. And so this is an important way for us to find out how bad is your heart really. And the cool thing is it uses low-dose CT, so it's a very simple test to do. It takes maybe 3 minutes. There's no injections. There's no needles. They don't have to jam something down your throat and balloon it open. You're not having dyes injected into you like an angiogram or anything to that effect. So it's a very non-invasive, super low-dose, easy way. There is a little bit of X-ray involved, but it's a special CT. It just goes whoop, whoop, and it scans your entire body. And so the top 3 reasons why. Like, why do so many people come back with a coronary artery score that's high? And hey, what is high? Okay, so the reference range says 0 is perfect. Like if you're 0, then you're crystal clear because obviously there's no calcium in your arteries. And because the calcium is a pre-plaque, there's no pre-plaque, there's no plaque, so therefore you're good and your heart vessels are clear. The claim is that if you go over 400, you're starting to enter risk zone. So like you don't really want it over 400. But remember, the scan itself is reading 4 or 5 arteries. So if you have 100 in each artery and you have a score of 500, it's going to get flagged as being high, but it really isn't because each artery is only 100. So it's if the individual artery goes over 400, do we go, ah? So if it's like 1,300 in one artery, big deal. There's a lot of calcium built up, and it's an indication that you're at risk for further plaquing and or coronary events. So what are the reasons that this happens? Okay, so I'm going to break down the top 3 reasons. Many people do not realize that the calcium deposits in your heart are not just diet. You know, everybody says like, it's eating corn-fed beef, or it's, eating too many potato chips, or having too much hamburgers and pizza and hot dogs and French fries and all American food, right? Like America, we make hearts explode. Okay, no, it's not just all diet. It's a response to a stimulus. Okay, so it's a combination of factors that leads to this buildup. And the plaque is the end result, not the beginning. See, in the medical world, it's the beginning. Oh my gosh, you have plaque in your arteries. You're going to have a heart attack. That is causing. Nah, go deeper. Hey, what's causing the cholesterol to be elevated? Why is it hanging out? Why is it in this artery? How come it's only in one spot? Why is it at 60%? Like, why not 99? So there's a lot of the questions why you should ask. But the number 1 reason, here we go. Ready? Like, if I could do a drum roll, it is chronic inflammation. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, like, Dr. Ernst, isn't there some way you could do an episode or a show that you don't talk about inflammation? And the answer is no. Inflammation is a root core. Like, it's a core problem. And it's a chronic issue. It's not just like you had inflammation yesterday and you ended up with a coronary artery score that's high and then you got a plaque. Now, it didn't happen like that. It's, 30 years of you being inflamed invites the calcium slowly over time. And when the score goes over 400, then your cholesterol is like, wow, look at all that calcium over there. We like calcium. Let's go hang out with that. And then the plaque starts forming. And then years and years and years is when it piles up. Inflammation is like an internal fire that will damage your body. Now, remember, it's the response, though, to a stimulus. You don't just get inflamed for no good reason. So it's the processed foods create the inflammation. The trans fats create the inflammation. The elevated sugar. But Dr. Ernst, they don't eat sugar. Yes, you do. You're eating things that turn into sugar. The elevated insulin. But Dr. Ernst, I don't have diabetes. Yes, you do. Everyone that I test flunks an insulin test to begin with. Most people have elevated insulin, but not high enough to be labeled diabetic. That's got to be like north of a 25 on an insulin screen. But, we're seeing people 8, 10, 14, so it's way too high. It should be less than 5. Insulin should be less than 5. So if your insulin's high, if your sugar's high, if your trans fats, if your diet's off balance, and listen, even if you have a hidden infection, there's so many people walking around with parasites in their guts, bacteria in their colons and their bladders, and viruses, Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, HSVs, all the viruses we hang on to. So when something gets inflamed, it swells. And so if an artery is inflamed, your body's going to try to patch it up because you can get little tiny holes in a swollen artery. So guess what does that? Calcium and cholesterol. Like, it's very classic. Calcium and cholesterol causes plaque. But it's the calcium that comes first, not the cholesterol. So the more inflamed your body is, the more likely the vessels are to pile up with calcium, which will start to build up in your artery. And I want you to think of the process as like inflammation is like sandpaper scrubbing an artery. Like if somebody went through and took sandpaper and scratched your skin, it would be inflamed. And the inflammation triggers a response. Your skin turns red, it turns bright, we can see it, and you go, ouch. But if you sandpaper the inside of an artery, it gets inflamed, it turns red, it swells up, but it doesn't say ouch because there's no pain receptors. So unfortunately to your body, it senses this and it goes, holy cow, there's inflammation in the vessel. Hey, calcium, we need your help. Come over here, lay down all over this and let it calm down. And then cholesterol comes around and says, hey, let's glue it all together. Let's kind of stick it. And then it should heal if the inflammation goes away. And so that's the problem today. So many of us with stress and poor sleep and poor diet and sedentary living and lack of hydration, lack of nutrients. Most people are not taking a proper vitamin, a multivitamin, a mineral, a cofactor, an enzyme, a coenzymes. So that's the number one reason, guys. So you've got to deal with inflammation. The cool thing is there's tests you can do to find out how inflamed you are. I mean, think about how cool it is. The second reason is a hormone imbalance, and an imbalance in how your hormones regulate your minerals. Mineral corticoid hormones that come out of the adrenal glands. So when the adrenals stressed out, we can't regulate our minerals. And what starts to happen is we have an imbalance in mineral metabolism. So for example, calcium and magnesium. So calcium and magnesium have a close relationship. When calcium, which is important for your bones, and magnesium, which acts like a gatekeeper, will make sure calcium stays where it belongs. But here's the problem. Many of us are extremely magnesium deficient. And without magnesium, calcium can end up wherever it wants to go. So it can end up in the wrong places, like your arteries, instead of in your bones. So like many of us are dealing with osteoporosis, osteopenia, and we're kind of like, my doctor says I need to take calcium. And we make the fatal mistake. Listen to this. We make the fatal mistake of going out and taking more calcium when we don't have enough magnesium. So we elevate the calcium levels. And your body's like, wow, you gave me all this calcium. Fling, 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 into the arteries of your heart. Fling, 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 into the bones and the discs in your neck. Instead of into the long bones of your body, because without magnesium, your body doesn't have what it needs to regulate calcium. And so the calcium starts to build up in things like your arteries. And it's like a guard dog, right? That if it falls asleep, the troublemakers are let in and they can roam around. So you need the guard dog, and the guard dog is magnesium. This is why so many people aren't taking the right stuff. They think, I need to take more calcium to make my bones stronger. No, you need more magnesium. The magnesium helps to regulate the calcium and get it back where it should go and not where it is going, which is in things that you don't want it in. Calcified lymph nodes, bad idea. Calcified arteries, bad idea. Calcified ligaments, bad idea. Calcified brain tissue, bad idea. Calcium is like a scar. It's trying to help, but it's only going to do what it can do. And if you keep inflaming the area that's calcifying, it just piles up. Okay, that's number two. So number one reason is you're inflamed. Chronic inflammation elevates the calcium in the area that's inflamed. Number two, you're magnesium deficient. It's the gatekeeper. It's the guard dog. It lets calcium go where it's supposed to go and not go where it's supposed to not go. Not go where it's supposed to go. Well, you get the idea. Okay, number three, vitamin K2. Now, K2 you've probably heard of, and you think it has to do with vitamin D, but it also has to do with calcium. And I don't think enough people know the crucial role of vitamin K2 in heart health. I want you to think of K2 like a traffic cop, or like, when the red lights go out and they have to direct traffic and stuff like that. So a traffic cop. It tells calcium to stay away from the arteries and go into your bones and into your teeth where calcium belongs. So remember, magnesium's kind of like, don't go here. Guard dog. Rawr, stay away from the heart. So if the guard dog's asleep, calcium can go in the heart. K2, on the other hand, says go to your bones and go to the teeth. So without enough K2, calcium doesn't go where it goes, and it ends up floating around your bloodstream. And because it's floating, if there's not enough magnesium, then it can land wherever it wants, and it generally can land in the arteries, which can lead to the hardening. So again, think of K2 as a way to make sure that it's organized and that it's like going where it should. Without K2, calcium's just laying all around, doing all the wrong things in the wrong places, causing damage. The challenge is that K2 is extremely hard to find in diet. It's found in a lot of fermented foods and certain animal products, but most people aren't eating enough fermented foods or enough animal products and animal proteins, so it leads to a deficiency, which leads to you randomly going to get a coronary artery scan and then going, gosh, my calcium scores are through the roof. So now that we have a better understanding of the 3 reasons for calcium buildup, let's do a slight review and give away some free stuff. Okay, free things number 1. Download my Heart Disease Heal Thyself ebook. It has everything you need in order to lower blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, arrhythmias, palpitations. And because this is a live stream, I don't have to announce anything. I don't have to say, text your name and number. You literally just click below. You'll see a link. Maybe it's up there, depending upon your feeds. Maybe it's down there. But there's a link that will say, click here to grab your free ebook. And then number 2, head on over to AskDrErnst.com. Guys, it's super simple. It's free. And type in coronary artery calcium, hit return. I've got articles. I've even got a summary of today, how you can lower your coronary artery scores, some information on how to read it. Like, it's all there and it's all available for you. You just have to take an action. And so since this is a live stream and we're not on the airways, we're going to be able to see if you actually do that. 1, I think it's like somewhere over here-ish, I can see how many people are viewing us. And that's cool. Number 2, somewhere over there or there is something that will say like, share this, okay? I implore you, share this straight to your feed. Right now, do it even, because the people that are scrolling through Facebook will then see it on your feed as it's live, and it might catch their attention. Make sure you guys comment, like I know a lot of times we see 50, 60, 70 people watching and like no one commenting. So that's weird. So like this is your availability. Like I'm standing in the studio, even though we're not on the airways, because we're streaming it live. And if you want me to comment or answer, ask a question. We can do that. And maybe you're just tuning in because it's a live stream on social media. So what we're talking about is how to lower your coronary artery calcium score. And where do you get this thing done, first of all? So you have to go to either a radiology clinic, Charlotte Radiology. You have to have your MD or your cardiologist order one for you. That was back in the day. Here it is, 2024, and you could just walk in locally to these clinics called Kraft. Kraft has some locations here in Charlotte. They're even running a special during this month that says you can have your entire heart and your lung scan for $149. I get 0 promotions for this. I was just there a couple weeks ago. I had my scan done. My wife had her scan done. Came back squeaky clean because that's what you want, 0.0. So if you want some information, give them a call. Just Google it, Kraft Body Scan Charlotte. And again, what is it? It's a low-dose CT. So it's computerized topography. It's a X-ray where they just take 3-dimensional structures. And, because of the technology today compared to 4 years ago, It's not like you got to get in this massive tube and go click, 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 click. No joke. They ask you to breathe in, hold your breath, boom. They ask you to blow out, hold your breath, boom, and you're done. It's like a minute and a half. And then you're going to have radiology reports. It'll read it for you. They'll email it straight to, and then bam, go online to AskDrErnst.com, and I have the reference cheat sheet guide on how to read a coronary artery score. Simple. And as we have a commercial come up in a couple minutes, what were the top 3 things that cause coronary artery calcium to develop? Let's see if you guys have been paying attention. Number 1, chronic inflammation. It is the fire that's burning 24/7 inside of you, and it's just because for 5, 10, 50, 20, 30, 40 years, you haven't woken up to the concept of going anti-inflammation or even figuring out what your inflammatory trigger is. For some people, it can be hidden infections. Again, could be a chronic virus that you didn't know you have, a low-grade UTI that you've been carrying around, a tooth. Many times, we have root canals that still have infections under them, or we have a cyst or something septic or whatever. Most people have critters inside of them that are taking over. One of the most common chronic infections is called SIBO, or dysbiosis, an overgrowth of bacteria in your gut that's been sitting there for 40, 50, 30, 20 years, wreaking havoc, creating inflammation. Guys, if you don't know this is why the research says your gut is more connected to your heart health than your heart itself. I'm going to say that again. Your gut is more connected to your heart health than your heart itself, because your gut is probably where that infection's coming from. So as we think of inflammation, I want you to think of it as like if somebody, took a credit card and scratched back and forth on your arm, 45 times in the next hour, eventually your arm's going to turn red because that's inflammation. And eventually it's going to hurt. And if you keep doing it, you'll rip all your skin off. It'll bleed, get infected. And it just gets nasty, right? So how do you not think that's happening in your arteries? A lot of you have stuff floating around your blood that's not supposed to be there. Heavy metals, physically microscopic pieces of metal, ping, 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 flinging against the artery. They've shown that cadmium and lead and aluminum and mercury can do that. They've also shown, ready for this, that sugar is like small particles of glass floating around in your blood. So if your blood sugars are anything higher than 90, you might be like, oh, well, Dr. Ernst, I'm a diabetic and I'm doing really good. I've got them down to 120. Well, it's still 120 is high. Still sweet home Alabama floating through those veins, and it can cause damage because it's glass. You might have a virus. You might have a parasite. You might have some low-grade toxins, mold, mycotoxins. Okay, so whatever's floating in your blood that sort of rubs up against the arteries scratches it just like the credit card scratches my skin, and it leads to inflammation. So if you're not dealing with that, plus you have the add-ons, I'm not sleeping very well, my stress is off the charts, I've got a sedentary lifestyle, I don't really do anything, I'm inflamed. We talked number 2 about how there's a hormone that's secreted by your adrenal glands. That's a mineral corticoid whose sole purpose is to regulate your minerals. A lot of you are severely mineral deficient, and we need magnesium to keep our calcium protected so that it doesn't go where it's not supposed to be. Okay, so calcium is important for your bones, but magnesium is like a gatekeeper, making sure it stays where it belongs. Calcium stay in the bones, don't come out. You need a small amount of calcium in your blood, but you get the idea. When you're magnesium deficient, the calcium starts to come out. And so it can come out of your bones, it can get stuck in your arteries. And we talked about how it's like, I want you to think of magnesium as like a guard dog. Like I have a guard dog for my house so that when we go to sleep, if somebody knocks on the door or tries to come in, the alarm, the dog, the dog starts to say, get out, like stay, you're not supposed to be here, back that thing up, get away. Okay, so think of magnesium as the guard dog. Then you have reason number 3, which is vitamin K2. And K2, again, is your traffic cop. Hey, calcium, you go over there. Magnesium, you stay here. Vitamin D, you go over here. So K2 kind of tells everybody where to go. And magnesium says, no, don't go here. So just got to remember that. It's 3 things, guys. It's chronic inflammation, magnesium deficiency, K2 deficiency, and that's what leads to the elevation in the plaque and the arteries and the calcium. Hey, when we come back from this commercial break, how to clean all this stuff up, the top 5 ways to get all that calcium out. And take a moment, listen to the sponsors, check out their information, use the codes, and right now, smash that share button. Hit that like. Follow our social pages so you can stay up to date with our information. And we'll be right back because we want to keep bringing great information to you. Hey, it's the Ask Dr. Ernst show. Special broadcast live on social media only. Understanding coronary artery calciums and how to get them fixed. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Dr. Ernst, host of the Ask Dr. Ernst show, and this last Saturday was epic. We had over 1,000 people registered and online for my masterclass with weight loss. I went through the top 3 reasons people struggle today to lose weight, everything from hormone imbalance to toxicities, even neurological involvement. And if you missed the live masterclass, I have an incredible gift for you, a free replay. You can watch it now. You can watch it tomorrow. You can even watch it later this week. It's 100% free, and it's going to show you everything you need to do to start losing weight fast. If you want the replay, I only need one thing. The word replay texted to 704-906-2094. Don't forget to put your name and email because it'll help. But just send the word replay to 704-906-2094. There's a free ebook with the diet and guidelines and everything you need. Again, text the word replay to 704-906-2094. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Ask Dr. Ernst show. My name is Dr. Aaron Ernst, and hey, today is a very special live stream only broadcast through our social channels. Unfortunately, the station who airs my shows is featuring some sort of a game. And they called me this morning and said, yep, you're not going to be able to be on the airways. We have to broadcast the game. And what that's going to mean is you can only do your subscribers through your channel. So yay, here we are today. Our topic is lowering coronary artery calcium scores. And we spent the first half of the segment of the show talking about the top 3 reasons that it builds up in the first place. Chronic inflammation, magnesium deficiency, vitamin K2 deficiency. And if you missed that, wait till it's live stream over, rewind back, watch it over again. Now I get to do the best part, I think, the top 5 ways to get that junk out. Not just to get out, I'll call it plaque, but to get the calcium out, which is what leads to the plaque in the first place. So if you're just tuning in or you're scrolling through the social feeds and you're just hopping on, cholesterol plaquing an artery is like at the very end stage. What happens first is the artery's inflamed, and that's why we said chronic inflammation is the number 1 cause of it. Then the chronic inflammation leads calcium to get into the vessels, and that's only if you don't have enough magnesium or K2 to regulate that, but most people don't, so this is what happens. Calcium gets in the artery, and the artery gets hard. It's called atherosclerosis, and your brain is kind of like, that's going to be a problem if this keeps happening, so it'll invite cholesterol to the area, because cholesterol is soft and waxy and sticky, like glue, and so it's like, hey, cholesterol, wherever there's calcium, put a layer of yourself down because we need to make sure that there's still some movement, and we want the vessel to be, patent, meaning that it's flowing properly. And just do your job, but don't worry, it's going to be temporary. I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going to send some signals to my owner and have them increase their magnesium and increase their K2. But you don't hear that, so you don't do that. So more calcium lays and then cholesterol, more calcium, cholesterol. And it ends up being this calcium cholesterol sandwich on both sides. And the vessel's like, I just can't. Okay, so that's what happens. So if you're listening today and your coronary artery calcium score's been done and it's north of 400 or it's in the 1,000, 2, 3, 4, And you're probably going like, what am I supposed to do? See, your doctors can be like, you need to take cholesterol and blood thinners, like robots and zombies. It's the same advice. I mean, I've been coaching patients for years now. My doctor says I'm supposed to take these cholesterol meds because my calcium score is high. And I'll say to them, well, which artery is high? I don't know. They didn't tell me. They just said it's high. And they put me on these statins. And now I'm a mess. And now I'm taking Plavix. So like, just be careful. There's a much better way. Much better. 5 things you could do to lower the coronary artery calcium scores. Hopefully it's an inherent, you understand. If the top 2 causes are deficiencies in magnesium and K2, please, for the love of God, get some tests done, figure out what your magnesium and K2 looks like, and start boosting that. Start taking it. It's not going to hurt you to take magnesium. 1,000 milligrams, 500 milligrams. Honestly, just take something. K2. In the same nature. Sometimes it comes with your D3. Sometimes you can get it by itself. But you can eat it in fermented foods and grass-fed red meats. Obviously, if inflammation is a cause, we got to get rid of it. So that just comes inherent. Hopefully, you're smart enough to say, if there's 3 causes and I fix those 3, I could stop this from getting worse. But how do we get it out if it's already there? The first technique I want to discuss is something called magnesium EDTA chelation therapy. And it's a remarkable therapy that even the studies are showing work. Like if you want to just, have some fun, go to Google Scholar, type in magnesium EDTA chelation and coronary artery calcium, hit return, and you're going to sit back and be like, wait a minute, how come my cardiologist didn't tell me about this? Like, you guys are going to read that it actually can lower your coronary artery calcium scores, and it's being studied and done like crazy. It's a remarkable therapy that combines the power of magnesium, because of course if you're deficient, you don't have the guard dog keeping the magnesium from entering the artery, and it's an EDTA, which is a chelation agent. Now, chelation is a process where something's put into your body that can bind things, usually heavy metals or minerals. So, for example, we can bind calcium. EDTA binds calcium. And if the calcium's in your arteries, the EDTA binds to it, the calcium, and helps to transport the calcium, out of your arteries into your bloodstream, which allows your blood vessels to open more freely. And the magnesium in the EDTA says, don't go back in that artery. And hopefully you're smart enough, you have the K2 levels up. So the K2 says, get back in the bones, calcium. Get back where you belong. Like, go back to the bones and the teeth. It makes sense, doesn't it? Calcium doesn't need to settle in your arteries, but instead it goes into your bones and your teeth, which is where it's supposed to be. Thank you, magnesium EDTA. It is a chelation therapy that is pretty much done in a clinical setting, usually through either an IV or oral/suppository methods. And it has to be monitored. You need some sort of a holistic physician or somebody to coach you through this. You can find over-the-counter magnesium EDTA or liposomal EDTAs. Just be careful. I'm going to be honest with you. You really need someone guiding you through how to do this. Get a liver test done. Make sure your liver enzymes look good. Get your vitamins checked. Look for magnesium and K2 first. Make sure you have good levels and then do the chelation. I personally like to do it with a suppository. It's a lot easier than having to stick a needle in your arm and sit there for 2 hours, weekly. You can do this suppository method in the comfort of your own home. Takes about 90 days, and usually you'll see results start to kick in. You can increase magnesium by taking a supplement, or you can just eat more leafy green vegetables. It's found in nuts and seeds and even avocados. This therapy that I'm talking about, magnesium EDTA chelation, is the most effective way. I'm going to just blanketly state this up front. It is the most effective way to get the calcium out of the arteries because you're actually binding the calcium. You're grabbing it specifically with a chelation product. You're yanking the calcium out. The rest of them, they help, but it's not as powerful. Okay, technique number 2. It is chiropractic. And you might be thinking, how the heck is a chiropractic adjustment going to get calcium out of my arteries? Well, we need to remember that it's all about your nervous system. So when we talk about chiropractic, we're not just talking about, making neck pain go away, back pain go away, etc. Chiropractic stimulates your nervous system, which regulates your inflammation. So remember, cause number 1 of the elevated calcium is chronic inflammation. You start getting your spine adjusted, your inflammation goes down. Because when your spine is misaligned, it puts stress and inflammation into your body. And I know it's going to sound weird, but those of you who are long-term chiropractic patients, you know what I'm talking about. You can tell when your body's inflamed. You're like, something doesn't feel right. And we, advocates of chiropractic and or functional medicine, don't run off to the grocery stores and pop pills to make our pain go away. We pop our spines. We go to the chiropractor. Hey, something doesn't feel right. Oh, that's so much better. Thank you. I can feel the difference, okay? By ensuring your nervous system is functioning to its optimum 100% capacity, chiropractic care can reduce chronic inflammation, which is the major cause of calcium buildup. Chiropractic adjustments also have been shown to improve function of the heart by increasing circulation and blood flow and ensuring that nutrients are transported to your body properly. So with less inflammation and better circulation, the body's better equipped to reduce calcium from the arteries, and your heart health, you could say, is connected to your spinal health. Even more so because the vagus nerve regulates the sympathetic and parasympathetics, the thoracic nerves, again, the sympathetics. So if you have too much fight or flight, that's an inflammatory process. So getting a really good, chiropractic adjustment. And the noise, just so you guys know, in case you're freaking out, going like, oh, I just hate the popping, clicking, cracking. It's just a pressure change. It's when a disc that's stiff becomes loose. It's like taking a piece of ice, which is solid, dropping in a glass of water, which is liquid, and the ice goes, it cracks the ice physically because it's a state change. The ice is becoming liquid. It's physics. Third technique, we've already talked about this one. Increase, please, your magnesium and your K2. We talked intensely about magnesium and K2. But I want to give you some ways to increase K2 because that's usually most people are like, if I was going to eat food in K2, I would eat kale because it starts with a K. No. K2 is found specifically in grass-fed butter, organ meats like liver and heart, and fermented foods, kimchis and sauerkrauts and things to this effect. It's important to note that K2 works synergistically with D. The vitamin D helps you absorb your calcium, and K2 makes sure calcium is deposited in the right places. Remember, K2 is the traffic cop. You go there, you go there, you go there, you go there. Magnesium is the guard dog. Don't go here. Don't go here. So if you don't have enough magnesium, it can go wherever it wants. The calcium, that is. Make sure you're pairing K2 with your magnesium and your D3. But I like to, instead of taking it, physically eat it. Remember, grass-fed butter, organ meats. And I've had a lot of people say stuff like, like eating a heart from a chicken or eating, like a liver from a chicken or a cow, like, bleh. So what you can do is you can take it and physically grind it into the other meats you eat. So if you take a piece of chicken and you run it through a meat grinder, you get ground chicken. I know, right? There is such a thing as ground chicken. So you guys know about ground turkey, you know about ground beef, but not that many people have ground chicken. So take a chicken breast and grind it, then throw a liver or two or a heart in there and grind that and mix that all together. And you're putting the organ meats in your meats. You can do it with Ground beef. You can rerun ground beef through a grinder. It's not a big deal. It'll just pass right through it. So put a chicken liver and a chicken heart in it and then grind your meat through it, and then you'll mix the liver and the heart into the meat. Or they're now having certain companies that actually make pre-made ground beef, bison sometimes, that has heart and liver and stuff inside of it. Okay, number 3. Again, we talked about this. Increase magnesium, increase your K2. Number 4, omega-3 fatty acids. I think it doesn't get enough of a endorsement. Everybody knows you're supposed to take a fish oil, but most people, if you ask them, what's fish oil for? They'll say it's for your heart or for your brain and things to this effect. But omega-3 fatty acids are wildly important in heart health, again, because they're anti-inflammatory. And so here's what happens. In nature, the omega oils exist in 3 categories primarily. There's others, but there's 3. The omega-3s, the omega-6s, and the omega-9s. And what happens is when you eat a lot of grains, corn and wheat and rice and oats and regular, I'll call it American foods, you end up getting too many omega-6s. So the omega-6 ratio for some of you is like 40 times what it should be, or 100 times what it should be. In an ideal world, it would be like a 4-to-1 ratio. You'd have 4 omega-6s for every 1 omega-3 and omega-9. But some of you have 40 for every 1 omega-3 and every omega-9. And omega-3s are anti-inflammatory because they help to correct the ratio. Now, I don't want you to think, well, if I just take a ton of omega-3, I can still eat all the crap I eat, because if it's just a ratio, well, 40 times my omega-6, why don't I just bring my omega-3s way up here? No, don't do that. That's the medical approach. What we want to do is bring the omega-6s down and lift the omega-3s so we can get a good ratio between them. Omega-3 fatty acids, of course, are found in wild-caught fish and the oily supplements that come from fish, like fish oils. Because inflammation is one of the biggest risk factors for the calcium ending up in the heart in the first place, it's crucial that you keep inflammation in check. And honestly, if you do like 3 or 6 or even 9 grams of omega oils daily, man, you can knock inflammation way down. And it's not just good for your joints, it's good for your heart. So omega-3 fatty acids, by far, hands down, a routine that you should be doing. You should be taking an omega-3 fatty acid every single day. Okay, technique number 5. So remember, we're trying to get all the calcium and all the crud out of our arteries. We're going to turn to detoxification, and then most specifically, getting it out of you through like infrared saunas or ozone saunas or just a sauna, okay? You've probably heard of the concept that sweating toxins out is a good thing, but a lot of you aren't doing it the right way. And so you think like by working out, man, I worked up a good sweat, so I'm good, I'm detoxing. Not really. You need to get into like a chamber that's designed to make you sweat like a lot, like a half gallon, quarter gallon of sweat. So I like steam saunas that are a combination between infrared and steam, or far infrared and steam. We have one in our clinic in here in Charlotte called a Hocket. So you can sit inside of it. It pushes out steam, at about, 115, 120 degrees. And it's doing infrared heat and far infrared and light therapy. So you sit in this chamber for about 28 minutes and whoosh, you're sweating out. Sometimes, 3 cups of sweat, 4 cups of sweat. So when you go through a sweating stage that's more than just a workout, it's a great way to reduce inflammation. It improves blood flow. It's heating the body, so it's expanding blood vessels. It stimulates natural detoxification pathways. So when you sweat toxins out, you're enhancing the ability for your body to say, let's get rid of the crud that's in our body. And that can help to clean your bones and your skin and your arteries. So it's not just, to lose weight. So I think a really good way is to use these 5 techniques, but remember that they all come with an inherent understanding that you should be taking care of yourself for a long duration of time. Not just, my test came back, it's 1,300, I need help. what do I do to fix it? I mean, we can do that, but you have to do all 5 of these, plus change your diet, plus get chiropractic care, plus detox, plus chelate, plus magnesium. So it might sound like a lot to you, and it is certainly worth doing, and it is going to be a challenge. But honestly, the best way would be for those of you who don't have a high coronary artery calcium score is just to keep doing this. Prevention, of course, is the answer for long-term health care. And if you've never had a coronary artery calcium score, I highly recommend you go get one done as a baseline scan. Because, the whole concept of, well, I didn't know. Like, you can't do that anymore. Like, I didn't know what my health was like. Look, there are tests. You can run blood, urine, hair, stool, saliva, and you can figure out how healthy you are. The number one, I'll call it, complaint that we get by our patients is, God, Dr. Ernst, you ripped me a new one. Like, I got my labs done, and it sounds like I'm dying. Like, is it that bad? And I'm like, well, you got 65 biomarkers that are out of balance. Do you think that's bad? How many biomarkers are there, Dr. Ernst? Well, there could be 200 or 300. We're learning new things every single day. All I can tell you is, if we know the normal is, like, for example, coronary artery score, 0. That's normal. It's normal to have 0 calcium. If you have 50, is that a problem? You've got 50, but it says nothing to worry about till you're at 400. But hey, if you're at 450 or 600 or 900 or 3,000, right? All it's doing is it's showing us how bad it is. So I treat 50 like 5,000. I treat 400 like 5,000 because what is it supposed to be? 0. Well, Dr. Ernst, you don't understand. Like, it's 362, so I'm good. Like, man, you still have 362. Why not get it down to 0? I was having a conversation the other day. Patient came in, borderline high-level toxic aluminum. And you know what she said to me? Well, it says 7 is the threshold, and I'm at 6, so I'm good. I'm like, yeah, but 0 is normal. So are you okay with 6? She's like, I am actually. And I'm like, huh, do you want us to bring it down? She's like, well, it's not in the red, so I'm okay. I'm like, but you're one click away from red. I think it's the infection of medicine today, because they'll tell you just have a little bit of disease. Like, you have a little bit of diabetes, you have a little bit of thyroid problems, you have a little bit of cancer, and it's not worth worrying about because it's not bad enough for us to treat you. So because we can't treat you yet, don't worry about it. Like, come on. How insane is that mentality? How much debt do you want? I want 0. Well, you know what? You should have a little bit of debt. Go into debt. It's an okay thing to do. Have some debt. Build up debt because that's what everyone else is doing. No. You should be remarkably different than everyone else. You should be that 50-year-old who looks like you're 30. You should be the 90-year-old who's running circles around their grandkids, and everybody else who's 90 is looking at you and being like, how come her knees aren't blowing out like mine? How come she doesn't have stenosis? And how come her hips are her original hips and I have 2 fake hips? Because you, with the fake hips, you didn't take care of yourself. And I know it sounds like I'm throwing a dagger through your heart, but guess what? It's the reality. If you take care of yourself, you last. Like, if you're a person who likes classic cars, you can have a 1967 Corvette that looks like immaculate. And it can be all original parts. Everything is squeaky clean. That owner took care of that car. Then you can have a 1967 Corvette that's rusted, missing some components, busted out glass, and has grass growing through it because it's been sitting in a field for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. So is it that it was the car's fault, or was it the owner's fault? And I know in that analogy, you guys are like, yeah, it's the owner's fault. But remember, this body is your car. So how do you take care of your car? Do you wash it regularly? Many of you do. Do you put the best fuel you can possibly put in it? Many of you don't. Do you tune it up? Do you let the transmission get worked on? The gears that keep it moving, your spine? I do. I get adjusted regularly, if not weekly, sometimes more than that, because I want this body to last 120 plus years. Some of you are falling apart, and it's time to start putting your cells back together again. Look, it can happen. You have a coronary artery score of 3,000. It can come down, but it takes years. So better to fix it when it's at 600 than at 400, than at 200, than at 100, because the perfect is 0. And I gave you guys today the cheat sheets. There's only 3 things that cause it: chronic inflammation, magnesium deficiency, K2 deficiency, and neural subluxations. I know that was 4, but you get it, because if you're subluxated, everything else runs out of balance. And there's only 5 things you need to do to fix it. Number 1, magnesium EDTA chelation. Number 2, structural chiropractic to keep your nervous system aligned so that it is perfectly preventing inflammation. Number 3, increase your vitamins and your minerals. K2, magnesium. Stop taking calcium. Calcium is probably the worst supplement you could take as a supplement. Start incorporating more omega oils, so the anti-inflammatory fish oils, and start detoxing and getting the crap out. It's really that simple. So hey, as we wrap up the show today, some words of encouragement and advice. Download the free information that's in the descriptions. It's either up there or it's down there. It's free. It's all for you. Head on over to AskDrErnst.com. Type in coronary artery calcium, hit return. You'll see all the articles that are available for free, including the cheat sheets of today with the things you can do, plus some extras. I think I did up to 8 steps on that one. And right now, again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe or follow, smash that share so people can listen to this, because I guarantee you somebody that you know needs to hear the information from today. And hopefully we're on the airways next Saturday. So I'll see you guys at some point, either online, in the airways, or in the clinic. This is the Ask Dr. Ernst Show. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week. Be blessed and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.